The last time I spoke to my mom, she called late at night just to hear my voice, and when I asked if everything was okay, she said, "I just wanted to remember what you sound like when you're not hurting." I brushed it off as worry, but that call plays in my head every time I try to sleep. It's been 2 years since my mom died. I still hear her voice like it just happened last night. It was a Wednesday, late, 11:43 p.m. I remember because I had my thumb hovering over the Do Not Disturb button on my phone. I was about to crash for the night after another rough day when her name lit up my screen. I hesitated before answering. My mom never called that late. She hated bothering people. She'd text first, even if it was just to say, "Call me when you get a chance." So when I saw her name pop up, my heart beat a little faster. "Hey, Mom," I said, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Everything okay?" She didn't answer right away. I remember the silence more than the words. Then, in a soft, almost tired voice, she said, "I just wanted to remember what you sound like when you're not hurting." It hit me like a punch in the chest.
I didn't know what to say.
I just kind of laughed it off.
What? I'm fine.
Why do you say that? She gave a small laugh, but it sounded forced. Like her throat was tight. I don't know. I guess I just miss your happy voice. I told her I was okay, that I was just tired but doing fine. I didn't want to worry her. I didn't tell her that I'd been dealing with anxiety, that work had been a nightmare, that my marriage was cracking quietly in the background, and I was too exhausted to fix it. I didn't tell her how heavy everything had felt lately. She said, "That's good."
I'm glad.
Then, before hanging up, she said, "I love you, baby." And I said, "I love you too, Mom." She died 3 days later.
Suicide.
No note. No warning.
Just gone.
And that call plays over and over in my head every night. At first, everyone thought it was sudden. But it wasn't. My mom had been trying to tell us she was struggling for years. Quietly. In her way. And we didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. Because I was too wrapped up in my own pain to recognize hers. But the truth is, she shouldn't have been struggling alone. Because someone made sure she stayed silent. And that's where this story really starts. Because my mom wasn't weak. She wasn't unstable. She didn't just lose the battle. Someone pushed her there. Bit by bit. Vort by vort. And I found out who. And I'm not letting it go. After the funeral, things didn't sit right with me. People kept saying things like, "She seemed so happy." And we had no idea. But I knew my mom. She carried things for too long without complaining. She didn't like to burden anyone, especially not me. The official story was that she had been depressed. That it got the best of her. Case closed. But I knew there was more. I started with her phone. My mom wasn't tech-savvy, but she used her phone to text, email, and keep notes. I went through it late at night, sitting at her old kitchen table, surrounded by that strange silence that fills a house after someone's gone. That's when I found them. Dozens of emails she had never sent.
Drafts.
Most were just thoughts, unfinished. But one of them hit me like a truck. It was addressed to me. "I don't know how to tell you this, but I feel trapped. Like I'm being watched. Like I'm not safe in my own home. I've tried to talk to someone, but he always finds out. If something happens to me, look into Dave. Please don't ignore this."
Dave.
Her husband. My stepfather. I felt the blood drain from my face. I reread it 5 times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Dave had married my mom 7 years ago, after my dad passed. He was charming on the outside, smooth talker, real man's man. He ran a small construction company out of Tallahassee. To everyone else, he seemed like a gift, helping her fix up the house, always smiling, always polite. But to me, he always felt fake, like he was performing. I started to think back. How she slowly stopped calling as much. How she smiled less in pictures. How she changed the subject when I asked about him. I decided to dig deeper. I pulled up her banking info. She had nothing in her account. Nothing. The woman who had always saved, always budgeted, had less than $50 to her name. Her joint account with Dave showed weird withdrawals. Big amounts. Transferred to an account I didn't recognize. I looked up the account. It was in Dave's name. And that's when I knew my mom didn't just fall apart.
She was broken down piece by piece.
I went to the police, but they brushed it off. There's no evidence of foul play, they said. It's just a tragic suicide. So, I did what any son would do. I made it personal. I started watching Dave. Quietly. I followed him. I watched who he talked to, where he went. I pretended like I was still grieving, still trying to process. I even called him a few times, acted friendly. But inside, I was building something. And then I got lucky. I followed him one night, after work. He went to a bar outside the city. I stayed in my car, watching from the lot across the street. That's when I saw him meet up with someone, some woman I didn't recognize. They hugged.
Kissed.
I recorded everything. Turns out, he had a whole other life. A woman in another town. A second house. And he'd been funneling my mom's money to pay for it. My stomach turned. This wasn't just emotional abuse. This was calculated. This was theft. This was betrayal. But still, no one would listen. Not the cops. Not the lawyers I called. Everyone said the same thing. Unless you can prove he pushed her, there's nothing we can do.
So I changed the plan.
If no one was going to stop him, I would.
I didn't sleep much after that.
I'd lie awake, thinking about how he'd done it, how he'd chipped away at her. Isolation. Control.
Lies.
He made her feel like she was the problem, like she had no way out. And no one believed me when I said he had something to do with it. So I stopped talking and started planning. I kept digging. I found a box in her attic with old journals. She didn't write every day, but she had a habit of scribbling notes to herself on scraps of paper and sticking them between pages. Most were normal grocery lists, reminders, but one of them was folded and taped shut. On the outside, it said, "In case something happens to me." Inside was a list.
Dates.
Names.
Notes.
March 2nd, Dave yelled at me for calling Ryan again. Says I'm too close to my son. March 8th, found emails missing from my account. 4 out of 10, Dave came home drunk, scared me. Said he'd take everything if I left. She'd been documenting it. I scanned everything, every page. I backed it up, stored it in cloud drives, hard drives, even printed a few copies and hid them. And then I got a call from someone I didn't expect, my mom's old friend, Marlene. She'd been quiet after the funeral, but now she wanted to meet. Said she had something to tell me. We met at a small diner near Gainesville, where she lived. She looked nervous, hands shaking as she stirred her coffee. "I didn't want to say anything at the funeral," she said, "but your mom, she called me a week before she died." I leaned in. She told me she was afraid. She said Dave had been recording her without her knowing, that he had cameras in the house, in her bedroom. She said he threatened to release things if she ever told anyone. My stomach turned. Marlene pulled out a flash drive.
She sent me this.
Told me not to open it unless something happened to her. It took everything in me not to break down right there. When I got home, I plugged it in. Videos, audio files, secret recordings. One of them showed Dave yelling at her, screaming that she was worthless, that no one would believe her. Another one had her talking directly to the camera.
"I'm scared.
If anything happens to me, it was Dave." There it was. Her voice, her face, her fear. And I had proof. But I didn't go to the police. Not yet. I had something else in mind. I created a burner email account. I uploaded everything, her notes, the recordings, the bank records, the affair, all of it. I made multiple versions. Scheduled emails. Set one to send to the sheriff's department, another to local news, another to Dave's clients. Then I bought a prepaid phone. And I called him. "Hey, Dave. It's Ryan." He acted surprised, even friendly.
"Eh, son.
You okay?" "I know what you did." Silence. I waited. "You're making a mistake," he finally said.
"No."
"You made the mistake. You made her feel alone. And now everyone's going to know who you really are." I hung up. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came 2 days later, when I got a knock on my door. Not the police. Not a reporter. But a woman. Late 30s. Nervous. "I think we need to talk," she said. "You don't know me, but I used to be married to Dave too." I let her in. And that's when the real story began to unravel. Her name was Melanie. She sat at my kitchen table, holding the mug of coffee I'd handed her like it was the only warm thing in her life. Her eyes were tired, more than tired. They were hollow in that way people get after years of being lied to. "I didn't know he was married again," she said, "until your email showed up. Turns out, Dave had been married before my mom.
Before me.
Before the house in Tallahassee. Before the construction company even took off. He had a whole other life. Melanie was his first wife. They met in Alabama. He was working odd jobs. She was in nursing school. Everything seemed fine, until it wasn't."
Same story. "It started small," she said.
Little comments. Controlling my money. Then, it got worse. He'd disappear for days, come back drunk, make me feel like I was crazy for asking questions. When I tried to leave, he emptied our accounts. Said I wouldn't get a cent. That I'd end up on the street. She showed me court documents. A restraining order. A financial settlement that mysteriously fell apart. Her lawyer quit halfway through the case. She suspected Dave threatened him, but could never prove it. He ruined my credit. I lost my apartment. I dropped out of school. I had to start over. She looked me straight in the eye. "Your mom wasn't the first, but she has to be the last." Something clicked in my brain. He had a pattern.
A trail.
And maybe, just maybe, I could dig up more than just a few shady emails and an affair. I called a friend of mine in Jacksonville who did private investigations on the side. I asked if he could look into Dave's business, his taxes, former employees, anything shady. Told him I'd pay whatever it took. What he found changed everything. Dave's company had cooked books. He was using fake invoices to pull cash out. He had ghost employees on payroll, money being funneled into shell accounts. All while my mom's name was listed as co-owner. Which meant when the IRS came knocking, they'd go after her estate.
Me.
He'd set her up to take the fall. And then I got a call from her old bank. A fraud alert had popped up, too late to help her, but just in time to help me. A recent attempt to access her trust account. One problem. That account wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Unless someone reactivated it after she died. And guess whose name they tried to use?
Dave's.
The woman on the phone told me they flagged it because the ID submitted didn't match the one on file. Someone had forged documents. He was still trying to take from her. Even now, I felt something crack inside me. Not sadness. Not grief.
Pure fury.
He wasn't just a liar. He was a predator. I called Melanie. "I want to burn him down." "I'm in," she said. We started calling old coworkers. Past clients. One guy, Ronnie, who worked for Dave 5 years ago, told me how Dave once forced him to take the blame for a job site accident, threatened to report him for stealing equipment if he didn't cooperate. Ronnie still had the texts. We started piecing it all together. A man who ruined every life he touched, who left behind a trail of emotional wreckage and financial theft. And now I had everything. Proof. Witnesses. Patterns. Victims. But before I went public, I had one more thing to do. I wanted to see his face when it all fell apart. I waited until the morning his company had its big yearly client meeting. He held it at a small hotel outside Tallahassee. I'd found out through a fake LinkedIn account I'd made under the name of a potential investor. He even sent me an invite. I showed up early, dressed in a suit. No one questioned me. I sat in the back of the conference room, heart pounding. I watched him walk to the front of the room in his polished boots, acting like the king of the world. Then I stood up. Everyone here might want to see this before signing another damn thing with this man. He froze. People turned around. Phones went up. Whispers started. I pulled out a small speaker from my bag and played one of the audio clips, the one of him screaming at my mom, telling her she was nothing, threatening her. The room went silent. Then I plugged in a USB and connected it to the projector. Photos. Documents, screenshots, emails, copies of the fake pay stubs, bank records, footage of his affair. Every piece of the puzzle. And I said, he stole from my mother. He abused her.
He drove her to the edge.
Then tried to cover it up. Tried to take what little she had left. And he's been doing it to others, too. Melanie, his ex-wife, is here. Ronnie, a former employee he threatened, is outside. They're ready to speak. Someone stood up, one of his current clients. Is this true? He asked Dave. Dave didn't answer. He looked around the room like a man sinking with no land in sight. That's when police walked in. I had sent everything, every file, every statement, to the DA, the sheriff's office, and 2 news stations.
And Melanie?
She had already met with a reporter from the Tallahassee Tribune. They put him in handcuffs right in front of everyone. As they let him out, he looked at me and I said, "You remember when you said no one would believe her? They believe her now." The fallout was fast. The news story went viral. Melanie told her story. More victims came forward. The IRS opened an investigation. His assets were frozen. His company collapsed. His name was dragged through the dirt. Every lie, every scam, every threat laid out in the open. The court case took months. He tried to deny everything. Blamed the stress. Said my mom was unstable. But the evidence crushed him. The judge gave him 18 years. I should have felt peace. But I didn't. Not right away. Because I'd let her voice go unanswered for too long. I missed the signs. I brushed off her pain. I didn't ask enough questions. I made mistakes too. It took time, but I forgave myself. I still hear her voice sometimes, in that final call. Still remember what she said. I just wanted to remember what you sound like when you're not hurting. I think about those words a lot. And I hope, wherever she is now, she knows I'm not hurting anymore. Not like before. Now I'm finally doing what I should have done a long time ago. I'm remembering her. The real her. And making damn sure no one forgets what he did to her, ever.